Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, welcome. This is a special one, Logan. Double digits, episode 10, the Locker Room Life podcast. We made it, buddy. We're here. We made it into double digits. First off, just wanted to say from the bottom of my heart, thank you for everyone for tuning in, listen to our voices and just seeing our mugs on YouTube for those that are watching it. But really does mean a lot. We are just beginning this journey and we love it. We love it so far, and we're going to continue to bring you some great interviews, some great content, and just want to say thank you just right off the bat. Episode 10, we have a heater. We took some time on this one, Logan. Been a little bit. Usually we're on bi-weekly episodes. There was so much going on. We wanted to give it a little bit of a break, let the dust settle, give us a little bit more meat on the bone to talk about. So with that, you had a busy 2 weeks. Maybe just zip it around. My boy, Logan Kubo.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, as Frank would say, we're back better than ever. 10th episode, which is so crazy already. It's been a wild whirlwind past few weeks for me. I started out in Palm Springs, California. God, when was that? When did I even leave? I don't even know. The 12th or the 11th. And then had a pitch competition out there. I talked about that a little bit on the last pod, but it was awesome. It was a great experience. Some awesome things for the company. And then came back, turned around in 2 days to go to Orlando, went to the PHATS FEM conference, was absolutely unbelievable. It was game changing for the company. Expect a few big announcements coming up here soon on the social medias with some new teams that we're working with. It's for everyone listening, people who don't know, it's an equipment manager conference. So all equipment managers from the NHL all the way down to any league you could think of throughout hockey, along with athletic trainers, are at this conference. And it's a very good spot to get vendor traction and to get noticed. It was amazing. Hopefully we can get some good EQs onto the podcast soon.
Nice, buddy. What can I report? These past couple of weeks have been a whirlwind for myself as well. I know we talked off air, but, super fun to celebrate my niece's graduation. I was out in Virginia at my sister's place, so that was awesome. Good family time, unplugging a little bit. So just being able to really get with the fam, really just, like I said, unplug. It's good to do that, man. Just think about nothing, but just being in the moment with the family. So I really love that. Super proud of my niece. She's going to be running track Division I at Longwood University next year. So again, all blessings, everything going on. Also, Buddy Hockey Club dropped the pizza collection, off to a running start. So happy, so thankful to everybody who went out and copped it in the first couple of weeks. So we're super hyped on it. This is one of the hats here. References made to what the collection's actually about. In a nutshell, it's just having fun with the fact that a pizza in hockey terms is just a brutal pass thrown up the middle to the other team. Hurts in the moment, but overall, we've all done it multiple times in our life. And Jay and I just wanted to have fun with it. So, Buddy Hockey Club, going to attach a promo code for all of our wonderful Locker Room Life listeners. And Best Damn Update brought to you by Best Damn Tape, our wonderful sponsor, and our boy, Logan Kubo's company. So in this segment, we're going to be talking about what's relevant, what's going on in the hockey world, what's going on in the world as a whole. We're evolving here on this podcast, being able to talk about other subjects that are just in the world. So first off, everybody's heard it. I know by the time this comes out, everybody, yeah. Florida Panthers, kudos. You guys are a unit, a dynasty in the making. I wanted to just give a quick shout out to a couple things. One thing is the boys are buzzing on the partying level. I give them so much props. Marshy, Reinhardt, Kachuk, I just saw them in the pool just zipping beers, day 7, going strong. How much sleep, I don't know. But boys, you're killing it and you deserve it. And everything that you guys have done this year has been amazing. I did want to, like Logan and I talked about, we have a couple friends on the managerial level. Kudos to Bill Zito again for an amazing job with what he's done with this team and building this team, reforming this team, and also making key moves to just continue this dynasty and for them to be built for the next couple of years. Personal connection with Brett Peterson, the assistant general manager of the Florida Panthers. I played with him growing up, and the guy's amazing. Just what he's done with his career was an agent for a lot of years, and now has pivoted into the assistant general manager role with the Florida Panthers. Buddy, I know we talked on the phone the other day, but I'm so proud of you. I can't wait for what's to come for you. And again, you deserve everything that your hard work has brought you. So love it, man. Logan, what are your thoughts?
Absolutely. Shout out Brett Peterson. Absolutely. I know a little bit of a sneak peek, hopefully future Locker Room Life member, Locker Room Life family member, Brett Peterson. But I also wanted to shout out Teddy Richards, equipment manager from the Florida Panthers. Absolute amazing dude. Back-to-back champions. What can you say? You can't really say anything. Good luck next year, boys. And no one thought they were going to do it again. And then look at where they are now. It's super, super cool to see. And on that note, it's a busy week in hockey, man. We got arguably one of the biggest days of the year besides Stanley Cup and playoffs. We have the draft tomorrow, which is going to be pretty crazy. By the time this comes out, the draft will be just happened, and there will probably still be big trades going on at that point. So it's going to be a wild next couple of weeks.
Again, as we know, the draft process, the breakdown, say what you will about it, but it's still an exciting time for especially all these young players. So just being able to enjoy the day. Mixed feelings a little bit about the remote draft. I don't know. I know Bettman's kind of toying with this whole, thing of doing the draft remote. I personally don't agree with it because I feel like part of the draft and part of those moments is being able to be recognized by your future fans, just all the personnel in the room of all the teams, and just really taking your mental checklist of all the people who passed on you. So I feel like that is a little piece of the draft. I do love the fact that the players will be allowed to be with their families and just being able to enjoy probably one of the largest and biggest accomplishments of their life to date with their families and with their most important people.
Super cool. I couldn't agree more. And then there's some great athletes, some great talent coming through there. Matthew Schaefer projected, I believe, he's projected number 1, right? Matthew Schaefer, great story behind that kid. And then there's the other kid as well. His name's slipping my mind, but maybe Brody something. He stayed home with his family on the farm. A lot of cool stuff from the draft class this year. I'm really excited to see what they do. I'm excited to see how they pan out. It's going to be a bunch of studs, a lot of good stories to follow along with.
Yeah, just a little note on Matthew Schaefer. Again, the cool thing about the draft process is just being able to have a lot of information about these players. You a deeper dive into who they are as people. So you learn a lot of things that, again, you're not just seeing them on TV and being like, okay, this guy's great. You see the measurables, you see everything that they've done to their hockey career, but you find out who they are, like I said, as people, things that they've done, their journey. And again, to us, especially with the Locker Room Life, a main goal for us is to tell the story of the journey, the hockey journey, the obstacles, the things and the moments that this all could have gone another way, and how that mental fortitude has pushed players into just continuing on. And now the culmination of that is just being able to be drafted, which is, as you know, this Logan was a draft pick of the OHL. We've talked about it before. Just being part of a moment like that and being drafted is just that culmination in that moment as a player where you're like, this was all worth it. And I feel like somebody like Matthew Schaefer, who's had a story of a lot of loss in his life to this point already. And what I respect about him is taking that loss, and at such a young age. And we talk about these players that are elite. They're so well beyond their years. And for this guy to take the loss that he has had thus far of losing his mother last year and then losing his billet mom as well, so just a lot of loss and a lot of things that, as a young player, it's just tough to navigate through. So what I really, really commend him for is him being able to go out and talk to younger generations about his story, about his loss, about being able to navigate through those mental objectives that he's just been having to deal with, and still being an amazing player. So amazing player, just an amazing person as well. And as we know, Logan, through this draft process, these teams do a deep dive into who you are, not only as a hockey player, but who you are in the locker room and as a person for their organization, as an investment for the future. So this guy is amazing. I'm rooting for him. I know he's going to number 1. All kudos to him. So
the draft process, you're 100% right. Just to know something about it, I couldn't even imagine the NHL process. And like Frank said, shout out to those guys. Excited to see what they do. Hopefully we can get some tape around their sticks and their legs sometime here soon. But yeah, along with that, another crazy day it all happened today, actually. No dress code. Amazing. I love it. I absolutely adore it. I think it's amazing for hockey. I can pump it up more. It allows these guys to, we've talked about it, allows these guys to actually have personality, because there's some very stylish guys in the league. Just off the top of my head, you got Pasternak, you got Matthews, you got Nylander. You got some guys with some pretty nice style, and it's going to be fun. It'll add a nice little pop to the game, and then we'll go through the other two. What are your thoughts on that?
It's a culmination of, like we talked about a couple episodes back, with even somebody with Ovi, right? It's a change in the guard on all levels. I feel like it's the time for hockey players to show their personality, show their swag. Like, I know Patty Bedell said it too. It's like hockey's in the state right now where it's time for hockey players to have a buzzy quote. Walk that line between controversial isn't the right word. It's more of just being able to come in their own as people.
For
and
sure.
I feel like hockey players are so respectful traditionally. So it's just good to let the reins off a little bit. Let the boys show. Let some chains out. Let's see the boys buzz around on some rad walk-ins, fit checks coming in. I love it. I can't wait for it. There's, like you said, so many rad, stylish young players in the league. And again, this is the forthcoming of the next generation, what we're going to be seeing going forward, and just for a lot of players to show who they are. Hopefully see some buddy hockey apparel, maybe on some walk-ins.
That would be sick. That's the ultimate goal. And then with that, they added the full-time emergency backup goalie, which is pretty wild. No more hero stories that we all were used to seeing, but I think it's good, honestly. And there's a lot of goalies out there who I know who are e-bugs around the leagues, and they're pretty legit. It's going to be interesting how that plays out, and it'll just be a little more consistency for the teams.
Another point on it as well, part of this new CBA is the 84 game season. So bumping it up a couple, but also shortening the preseason, which I agree with as well. I know it sucks for guys that are trying to make the squad, but at the same point, the Stanley Cup as a whole, if you think about it, just ended. And I say it all the time when I'm explaining this to anybody. The Stanley Cup is the hardest trophy to win. You're playing a full 82 game season grind, physically, mentally, travel, everything. And then on top of that, you have to then bring yourself up another 5 notches to play 2 months of probably the most intense hockey that you've ever played in your life. So again, Florida Panthers, the Stanley Cup, anybody who's won it, it's a grind. And I have so much respect for people who can make it through. So again, we'll see. Rules, they're instituted for X amount of time for this, as long as the CBA is active, and we'll see how it plays out. I haven't seen a lot of player reactions. Have you seen any? Because this is fresh news. This is breaking news right here on the Locker Room Life podcast.
I assume that they'll just take it on the chin like most players do. It's just they'll just roll with the punches, not really say much. I think that this last topic of our Best Sam update really parlays into an awesome guest, but the return of Johnny T, arguably one of the greatest Blackhawks of all time, great leader, great player, going back to his hometown squad at the Jets. It's going to be awesome. I'm really excited for him, and he really found a lot. He did a lot of soul searching and really found himself, found his purpose, and really is okay mentally. So I think it's more power to him. Super, super, super awesome.
It's also another example of just the times we're living in, right? With all of the resources that we have mentally, physically, and these great professionals that surround these teams, it allows players to sometimes step back a little bit and really figure out if they want to continue to pursue this. We saw with Gabe Landeskog with a major injury, just being able to sit back with their families, and I guess reality really sets in because they've been playing the game for so long, especially Jonathan Taves. He's had so much success. It's really easy to say, hey, you know what? Maybe that was my story, and this is kind of a nice end, but it's so awesome to see health-wise that he's back up to standard where he feels like he's himself again. And that was a big thing that he was saying in the media, was that he just didn't feel like himself. And I feel like you can't play at the top of your level if you're not yourself. And I give him so much respect for that, because he could have just easily signed a couple one-year tickets for a lot more money than he's getting right now. But I respect him for stepping away and saying, you know what, I got to be the best version of myself. And then I can come back and see if I really want to do this. So Jonathan Taves, welcome back, buddy. Can't wait to see you rip it up next year. Help those damn Jets.
Yeah, it's gonna be awesome. And like I said, that closes the Best Damn Update, brought to you by Best Damn Tape. It parlays into a pretty awesome interview that we did. Corson Searles, it was just unreal. He really understands the back end psychology of what it takes to be a hockey player. I think that's the most important thing that I got away from that. What it takes to be a hockey player, what it takes to be a high level athlete, a high level human. And he really dropped a lot of good knowledge. And I know me, Frank, and Jay were saying it's just like we could sit there for hours and pick that guy's brain about what's the little things you can do to get better, breathing a little slower, breathing a little faster, sleeping better. It's just unbelievable, super, super cool stuff. And it was amazing to have him on.
My biggest takeaway from it as well, like we talked about, is there's so many things subconsciously that we were doing as players that we didn't even know were embedded into us and holding us back from being and reaching our maximum potential as a player. The mental mind frame of a player is what separates an elite player from a player. And I feel like people that are on the elite level are just wired differently, but a lot of that is because of the mental control that they have. Even the guests that we've had thus far and been blessed to have, they are wired differently. Being able to mentally push through a lot of the obstacles that a lot of people and a lot of the population fall to the wayside, they've been able to push through, and that's the reason why they're successful. And Corson really diving into yourself, the mental makeup of a player, and really doing a lot of searching in regards to your approach to who you want to be and how successful you want to be. So Identity Shift Hockey, we're going to put his handles for Instagram for his YouTube channel as well. It's been building and building. He has great content, and we can't wait for you guys to see it.
Ladies and gentlemen, without further ado, Corson Searles, Identity Shift Hockey.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another episode of the Locker Room Life podcast. Honored to be joined by Corson Searles, the man behind Hockey Psychology. It's a platform concentrating on a really big piece of hockey, but mainly for us as well as players, and knowing that hockey psychology is a huge piece of the game for us, but also just in the game today. So thanks for joining us, Corson.
Yeah, absolutely, guys. I appreciate you guys having me on.
So to jump off, I wanted you to talk about the platform, how it started, kind of everything you focus in on.
Biggest thing for me is I grew up playing hockey like at the AAA level essentially my whole life, and went up into junior A, played out in the CC for a little bit, played, Division III hockey, and kind of throughout my whole career, always been obsessed with the mental side of the game, trying to understand how do the best players actually think? How do they approach the game? Whether it's how they build confidence, whether it's their ability to be dialed in for games, how they show up consistently, how do they develop IQ, how do they approach their training? I've always tried to understand the bigger picture of what actually goes into being able to perform effectively from a mental side. And that was the obsession throughout my career. And naturally, as my career wrapped up through college, then I jumped into, running this business full time. And yeah, that's kind of really, really short version of where I'm at.
Nice. Where did you play D3?
So played at a couple different schools. I had a crazy sequence of freak injury. I was at Bernathen College, so super small school out in D3. Unfortunately, it tore my groin 5 games into that first rookie season. So missed that whole season. And then COVID hit. Our school decided to shut down the D3 team, and just a crazy sequence of 3 years of just trying to find where to play. So yeah, it was kind of just chaos. And I just say Bernathen as that was the main school I went to essentially.
Nice.
And where were you playing youth at?
I played in Brantford, Ontario, where Gretzky's from.
Nice. 99ers?
Yes. Yep.
Yeah. Awesome.
I was born in Toronto. Was born in Scarborough, and then I played in the GTHL growing up, so Toronto Red Wings, and then I played with the Marlies. But yeah, that's awesome, man. So breaking down the game within the game, because I know that that's one of the key sayings that is part of your platform. From a player standpoint, I know you said you were obsessed with that side of it. Was it an obsession that built from your own, lack of a better term, inefficiencies, or is it something that you were always positioning yourself on, okay, this is a big part of my game, and I'm obsessed with the fact of how other players are seeing this as well?
Yeah, it was almost a combination of both. I was aware of where the mental game did stop me at times, and I was also aware of when it was working and when things were actually aligned, when my preparation was dialed in. I could see how different my performance was, and I could see honestly the difference between different players where two guys would show up and do the same season training. They'd prepare generally the same way on the team, but then for some reason some guys would be super confident, trust themselves, have the belief, and then earn the coach's belief. And then there'd be other guys where it was just complete doubt, throw the puck away, and it was just this complete lack of ability to actually use their physical tools, even if two guys were basically the same ability.
Man, it was I tell these guys all the time, and it was such a big aspect for me. And like you said, like I knew it was there. I knew it was a big thing. And these high level players to get to that next level was the biggest thing. Mental is so key in hockey. And I always just overthought everything. And looking back on it now after my career is just, that was really the big thing. And to the next question, like mental preparation, I know you mentioned it there. Like what are some key things and how big do you think it is? And even if it's just you're going out to a camp and it's not even like a big playoff game. I know people lean into it more heavily in more important situations, but it's a very well-rounded thing that should be used all the time.
One of the biggest things, and I'll set the context with this, that I always like to make it clear, I don't look at this as mental as the solution for all things. Sometimes people want to come to me and say, yeah, I'm not confident. I don't believe in myself. And I'll just say, well, are you as skilled or physically prepared as the other guys on the ice? And I'd say probably 25% of the people I talk to say, well, not really. And the truth is, sometimes you don't deserve to be confident. And so that's one of the biggest things is you have to do the physical training. You have to have a proper physical training system. You need to have a skills development plan, whether it's working with a skills development coach or like developing that out for yourself. Once those things are in place, then the mental piece becomes a true important asset to take you to another level. Because again, I like to use the analogy of, okay, you can have a Ferrari, you can have the best car in the world. If the driver sucks, well then, if there's a baby in the driver's seat, it doesn't really matter, right? And so I always use that analogy to just describe, it also goes the other way, right? If you have like a bicycle as the vehicle and you could be the best navigator in the world, you're going to get crushed by a mediocre car, right? As long as they can actually drive the thing, right? So that's a key piece. And the way I would describe preparing yourself for whether it's a tryout, whether it's coming into a season, it comes down to seeing the mental piece as there's two kind of core things you got to do. One, you actually have to train your instincts. So it's training, I like to say, almost like the mental software, just like the software on a computer. If you have terrible, glitchy software, again, you can have an awesome computer. It doesn't matter if you have viruses all over. So it's being able to, number one, get the right software installed, right decision-making, having the right beliefs, having the right kind of self-talk and thinking about the game effectively. Once you have that piece, then it's about being able to, in the actual performance, show up and get yourself out of the way. And a lot of times people say that and they'll be like, oh, you just got to go play, go trust yourself. But it's a real skill to know what to do to prepare the right instincts. And then it's another skill to be able to say, when I get there, do I trust myself and do I let my kind of inner voice silence? Or do I go more into what Logan was saying? Do I start overthinking it? Does the voice get louder? And then now I'm just completely distracted going in 10,000 directions.
Yeah, that's such a great point. Confidence, I feel, is the most, and it was the same thing for me as well, how to balance the good with the bad, right? Having that short memory, confidence as a player, we can all attest to that. It dictates a lot of different things. We can earmark those times when we were playing our best hockey was when we were confident and we weren't thinking about it. But a lot of that, like you said, is, especially nowadays, is with the preparation, a routine. And a lot of those steps in the routine is what builds the confidence. But then there's also the second part of that exercise, which is when you actually get in a game, to where it was for me was to simmer the sounds of everything else around me and just be confident of the preparation that I had brought to that point. But it's way easier said than done. Once you start to add in a lot of different things, and we talk about it all the time on this podcast, is especially with kids now, with social media, with a lot of just things that can creep into your head that can abate and really just get in the way of that confidence. Because I'll take an example, and we've talked about it as well, is that you're looking to play a team, right? Now you can look on socially and look at that team, look at certain players, and it just, those thoughts cloud your head. You're like, it doesn't matter how prepared I am, but am I good enough to compete against this team that is the second best team in the country? Am I, this guy that they have, he's like the best player, am I going to match up? Oh crap, am I ready for this? And Logan is a little younger, so he has talked about it before, is that kind of crept into his confidence, like looking at, damn, this team's really good. Are we good enough? So confidence is huge. Jay, do you have, I know confidence, because we grew up in the same era, is that, the confidence in the game. Could you agree with that?
Yeah, for sure. I feel like I would call it maybe imposter syndrome, like the whole time, of being a small guy and then getting invited to stuff and, getting looks and then being like, all these other guys are huge. What am I supposed to do here? It was like, it's funny because the video stuff is like I could see that being like such a head game, but I still skate and still get asked to some good skates that I'm like, I don't think I'm 40, dude. I might be a little out of my element here. And then I do see some clips and I'm like, oh, he still can skate, which kind of helps me a little bit. But playing hockey's probably my favorite thing to do, or favorite hobby to do now. So yeah, I might have imposter syndrome the whole drive to the rink and getting dressed next to the guy and then getting on the ice and everything goes quiet and you forget about it and you just play your game. But these games mean nothing now, So in a little high stakes, I could see the mental just really taking over and driving somewhere you don't want to go,
Just to add something to what you guys were mentioning about kind of this access to so much information that players go through. One of the things I catch with a lot of players that they run into is, I almost call it like elite prospect disease or something like that, where they study everyone's elite prospects, and it's this constant comparison game of, okay, did I get a point a game this season? Oh, this guy had 30 goals this year. And at the end of the day, that is what has happened. And the ability to understand, like, this is something I talk to a lot of guys about. There's a reason betting exists in sports, because if everything was set based on statistics, then there would be no reason to ever bet on anything, because it's just whoever the favorite is, they get the points, they get the trophy or whatever, and they win. But we all know that's not what the world is like. And yet we go into games and performances thinking, oh yeah, okay, he's got all these stats, he's better than me, he's done this. And then we doubt ourselves, when in reality, we have no idea what's going to happen a lot of times. And so sometimes even calling it confidence it's a term I try to get out of a lot of players' heads when I first start working with them, because if you try to think, I need to be confident going into this game, I need to be confident going into this tryout, you're assuming that confidence is, I am going to win without a doubt. And if you ask any athlete, not like when they're in their career, but when they're out of their career, hey, did you have total belief in yourself before every game? Like, you might hear the Conor McGregors of the world go, oh yeah, I was definitely going to win, I'm the most confident ever. But there is doubt. It's just the ability to understand that believing you can do it or believing you can't do it are just thoughts. They're not the actual situation. And it's so important for anybody to be able to realize that just because you have doubt or you have anxiety, you have fear, it doesn't mean you're not confident. It just means that you're a human who is aware that nothing is 100% guaranteed. And if something was 100% guaranteed, why would you do it? Right? If we were going to play a sport where all I did was just like drop this pen on the ground, and if it hits the ground, I win, we'd be like, let's find a game where maybe I don't know how I'm going to make the outcome happen.
No, Corson, you touched on so many good points there, and I love the MMA reference there, because those guys, just the most high pressure situations in the world. Same thing as hockey players as well. It's a little different because of its team sport, but just that social media era. I wish I would have had you growing up. I use it as an example. We talked to Scooter Bricky from Wilkes-Barre Scranton Penguins, and he lived with Rucker McGroarty. And everyone knows who Rucker McGroarty is. Everyone knew who Rucker McGroarty is since I was 12 years old. And you're going out in a game against him, you're like, oh, God, you're like, he's going to pot 4 on us. You just know it's going to happen. And it definitely gets in there. And then you mentioned just things about the fear and that anxiety that you have. And an MMA reference, John Jones, he says it, and he's like, that thing in your stomach, that anxiety, that fear that you have to figure out how to channel that and put it into performing at your best and using it as confidence and power. And going into that, what would you think, just from your experience coaching these guys and going through it, what would you think some of the key things that you've taught these guys, or some just little things that they're doing to help their game?
When somebody is scared or has that fear going into a performance, kind of like I said in the previous kind of statement, first of all, it's about understanding that the fear is not actually bad and being able to create a different relationship with emotion in general. Something that I work on with basically every player, especially guys. We're not really taught to be with emotion. We're typically taught to transfer all emotion into anger, and typically that's not a super helpful thing to just instantly get mad at yourself every 2 seconds, right? If we can all probably think back to times in our career where it's, oh, you felt sad because you missed a play, then you turn it into, I'm mad at myself, and then it turns into that kind of self-hate, just shitting on yourself essentially the whole time. And I've been through it. I know that feeling, and I know the spiral that it brings. And so when a player can understand, okay, emotions are totally fine and they're to be expected. And so if I feel nervous before the game, being able to actually just bring yourself back to, it can be as simple as just noticing your breath. And it sounds super oversimplified, super cliche, but being able to be with your breath and then be with the emotion and not try to stuff the emotion down, but actually be with it and notice, oh, okay, that's fear. I'm scared right now. And because we're so conditioned to think that's weakness, we're conditioned to think, oh, well, this guy, this and that guy, all the people that I look up to, they are so confident all the time. Well, that's because you get to see their outer presentation. You get to see the shell of what they put out to the world. And so you think that's what your internal should be all the time. So the second that a player starts to understand that nuance and starts to realize, okay, I'm scared, I'm nervous, cool, those are there. Guess what? You can be any emotion and still perform and have your best game that you've ever had, because emotions don't actually control how you play. Now, being in a better state, having better emotions can help. It can put you in a little bit better state to increase your chances of performing. So if you're relaxed, you're loose going right into the game, that tends to be a better state for players. But that what can really help is to understand, I like to draw this diagram for a lot of players of, do you know where you sit on, they call it like an arousal level, but basically you have like people who are more like state, lower arousal state, high arousal. And a lot of people think, oh, well, the solution is I got to be high arousal, super fired up, got to be like insanely excited for every moment. But it's not actually the case. It's that everybody has an optimal zone that they play best in, which may be right in the middle between super calm, super excited. It might be slightly more excited. And basically what you have to figure out is, where am I right now on that scale? And then where do I need to get myself to? And the other kind of simple tactic I would use for that is really just using breath work. So everybody hears about breath work. People talk about it 24/7, but it's, to simplify it down, basically you want to think of breathing as, you basically have kind of the inhale, you have the exhale, and you have the hold at each end, which some argue that is effective. I like to just focus on the two basic ones, is again, inhale, exhale. If you basically slow your exhale down, it calms you down. If you speed your exhale up, it excites you. And so basically when you're finding yourself too low, you need to focus on breathing out a little faster. and slowing down your inhale. Anybody can practice this. I'm sure people listen to this. You're probably listening like in the car ride or on the way to the rink or in the bus or whatever. Just practice that. The second that you change your breath over and you start to switch your breathing to a slower inhale, fast exhale, you notice, ooh, more energy starts to build up. I almost feel, okay, I could go fight somebody, like I'm ready to go. You can do that very quick. You do a minute of breathing like that, right away you can get yourself into a higher state. You just have to be careful you don't bring yourself too far up, like 2 hours before the practice or a game or whatever, because then you're going to be way too fired up. And then the other way you want to think of it is slow your exhale down when you calm down. So to loosen yourself up, to relax, a lot of people recommend something like a 4-8 breathing. So more of a 4-second inhale, 8-second exhale. And all you want to do is just do that until you start to notice, okay, I'm calming down, my body's starting to respond. And the way I like to describe that is that's like top down approach of like mentally, I'm actually identifying it. I'm talking myself through it. And then I'm starting to bring that into my body. And then that also brings it bottom up, because when you calm your body down, it starts to calm your mind down. When you calm your mind down, it starts to calm your body down. So it's like a cycle.
You know what is so crazy is that, especially in hockey, and all of us, can relate to this. Like in life, right? The thought of the hypotheticals can affect us so much. And to your point in regards to just getting control of our breathing and, more importantly, being within that moment, it's way easier said than done, especially for me, and especially for people who think of things a million miles a minute and the hypotheticals that go along with it, right? And it's the same thing in hockey. It doesn't matter if you're playing a pickup or, well, actually, yes, this is a good correlation. Pickup versus an actual game. If half the people that played just as good as they do in pickup versus if we'd all be in the NHL, right? But then it's something to tap into on a psychological level. It's like, and it's so funny, and this is completely irrelevant, but I was playing an adult league game and I was like, why can I not play as good as I was on Tuesday morning today? And again, as we get older, and also it's just meaningless, but you can actually step back and actually diagnose, why do these things even happen? And then bringing it down to the level of people that are playing relevant competitive hockey. It's like the hypotheticals within that moment are what killed a lot of things for us. It happened to me, because you're just like, oh man, what if? And the what ifs are something that just completely can kill confidence, can kill the way that we hold ourselves within the moment. You're almost frozen. And especially in hockey, it's such a rhythmic sport, right? Flow. The whole game goes on flow. And once that flow is interrupted and you're not touching the puck more, or you're not in the game, you're not playing as many minutes, you feel out of loop. Your rhythm is completely off. The hypotheticals creep in. And it's so crazy how just some things of not being in that moment spurs this boulder of emotions that it's just a downward spiral from there.
Yep, absolutely.
So in regards to overall techniques, what are other things that you're working with players to get them up to speed, per se, in regards to like the preparation, to get them to that state where all they need to think about is being within that moment?
The honest answer to that is I have a pretty big system that I use to walk guys through it. And I know I used to listen to a lot of people who had programs and say, oh yeah, that's bullshit. It's probably some simple thing. The truth is that there are a lot of different techniques you can use to get you to the same kind of place. So the way I like to think of it's the analogy of many paths can take you to the same destination. And the thing is that anytime somebody gives you a prescription of do this meditation for this amount of time, do this exact technique, it's an oversimplification of a process that you need to find for yourself, and you need to figure out specifically what works, and also not just what works for you right now, but understanding how to adapt and change that method over time. And so I want to give that context before I also just give a prescription, because I know everybody wants something to actually do. So the base thing that I always recommend everybody start with is starting with just doing very basic breath work and breath meditation. The reason that I recommend this is because at a base level, when you learn to meditate, what you're basically teaching yourself to do is to become the observer of your thoughts, of emotions, and of whatever's happening. And the reason why this actually matters, and I say this because the whole pitch of meditation is you have to actually buy into doing it in order to get any benefit. If you don't believe in it, it doesn't really matter. And so the way you want to think of it is our brain basically works that we have all these kind of thoughts and emotions that are swirling around. And if we think of ourselves as, we don't actually exist in the back of our mind. But if you think of, you're like in a chair in the back of your mind, watching the thoughts and emotions happen. Now, what can happen is we think that we are the thoughts and emotions, and what they call in DBT, dialectical behavioral therapy, is they basically say that it's fused. So you become fused to your thoughts and emotions. You start to think, oh, I am my thoughts. The emotions that kind of grab me, they pull me and drag me in all different directions. So when you learn to meditate, basically what you're learning how to do is to stop being fused to them and learn how to actually diffuse from the thoughts and emotions. When you start to do that, what starts to happen is you realize, this is what it feels like to be present. This is what it feels like when I start to get into a flow state. And so the way I would talk about it is, if you think about if somebody comes to you and says, hey, I want to get better at stick handling, you're going to say, okay, well, you got to go practice stick handling consistently every day. What did all the best stick handlers do? It was just a routine. Just every day they're stick handling, right? You can't say, oh, it's 12 minutes of stick handling a day will help you make the NHL. It's doing it consistently and as much as you can and developing the skill over time. So when I recommend meditation, pretty similar. I recommend starting with 2 or 3 minutes of set a timer on your phone. Just sit, observe your breath, observe your thoughts, observe the emotions. And just starting with that, you'll start to realize that there's this state that you can start to drop into quicker and quicker. And you just have to practice it. And the problem we live in right now is we live in a world where we essentially have infinite information, right? We can, like we talked about, scroll elite prospects all day because we can learn about every player that exists on the planet now, basically. We have infinite Instagram, social media. So there's all these things that can pull us in all different directions and make us think and feel emotions. But our ability to actually sit and be with the emotions and notice them and notice, hey, I'm really anxious all the time. And a lot of times hockey players don't even take enough time to feel that because they think, oh, well, if I feel that, it might mean that I'm not confident. And if I'm not confident, then maybe I'm not the player I thought I was. And if I'm not the player I thought I was, maybe I won't make it to where I want to go. And everything starts to fall apart. But it starts with dealing with the base of the problem, which is you're not even aware of what's going on in your head. So when you get to the game and think, well, why don't I believe in myself? Why do I doubt? Well, have you ever actually sat with your thoughts and emotions, where that comes from, and figured it out? And so just starting with that, again, it sounds like, guys will probably listen to this and be like, yeah, fuck this guy. He just told me to go meditate. That's his only outcome. But the truth is that that's the skill that translates to every other skill. So you have to master that. Just if you want to play hockey, skating will always be a part of playing hockey. You can't just skip that skill. So that's the same idea with the mental game. So that's what I would say to start with. And then, we can dig into other tactics, but I'd start there.
I feel like I need that every day.
Absolutely.
It's literally, Jay, I can't agree with you more. And it's something that I've become more present with I wish I would have been more present with it when I was a player, but just being a business owner now and just dealing with all these different things really, really does a difference when you are able to address these things and put a label on them. That's the biggest thing when you're understanding your thoughts. And you're 100% right. As hockey players, we're I won't say we're machines, but we are machines. We've been programmed our whole lives to just put our heads down and just keep going no matter what. And it's something that can get lost in translation, especially if you're having a bad game or you have a bad practice or you just have a bad warm up. Because that can really, I know me, like I was like, God, my legs, I still like just my legs. And I'm like, oh my God, my legs are heavy. I'm not going to be good out there. Oh, this is the worst. And would you say there are any specific things to get a bounce back? If you're a bounce back from a bad game or a bad practice or just bad thoughts, that those are really valuable insights that players need to have?
I'm going to answer something within that question and then go back to the kind of ability to reset. One of the concepts you mentioned there was the kind of going into a game and feeling like my routine's off. I feel like I'm not, maybe my legs aren't feeling good. One of the most interesting things that I learned, I would say probably about 5 or 6 years ago, was this idea of the placebo effect. And I'm sure like everybody's heard of this concept because I'd heard it my whole life. I'd always said, oh, cool, that sounds interesting. When you actually look into the literature around what the placebo effect is, it completely changes the way that you perceive beliefs and how what you believe impacts the way that your body actually responds to the world. And so again, that sounds like in the clouds, made up stuff, but you can Google it. You can look up and read on Google Scholar, read the actual articles. But what the coolest thing about it is you'll see articles where somebody will, for example, drink a milkshake, and one group will be told this is a healthy milkshake. One group will be told this is an unhealthy milkshake. They'll tell them that, and their bodies will respond differently, even though it's the same drink. One body will respond and actually process it effectively. One will actually struggle with it. Yeah.
It's wild.
Yes. Right. And so what you have to remember with that, and that's their, and they're not just making this up. They're not just saying, oh, it's, they felt better. They're reading their actual, basically their insulin spike, which is supposed to be an autonomic response, something that happens without us consciously having any control. Right. So we think we're going to get a lot of sugar. We think we're going to get a lot of fat. Our body responds to that, basically giving us new hormones and giving us new tools to work with. Then you can look at studies where they've basically lied to people and told them that they were improving on sprints. They had a group where they had one group run 100 meters, one group run 90. They didn't tell them they were running less. They just told them the times. The group that did 90 were just simply being told, hey, you guys are getting better. You guys are running faster times, because they could see the times were better. Well, that group ended up outperforming the other group on the 100-meter after. They were running less, but because they thought they were winning, something in that system, that's the hypothesis. We don't know 100% what the mechanism is, but there's something about belief that means that your body will change. Now, why that matters is because if you think about going into a game, right, you step into whatever it is, you feel your legs are dead. One thing, a technique you can use that's a really weird hack that's like surprising that it works, is just ask yourself what it would feel like if you did have energetic legs, if you did have energy. Don't say, I'm going to try to feel that. Just be like, what would it feel like? And the craziest thing is you can do that with, if you're feeling sad. Now, I don't recommend you avoid sad emotions or negative emotions because it's a deeper issue, but you can use hacks like that where you just simply say, what would it feel like if I was happy right now and excited about this game? And you'd be like, oh, I'd be smiling. I'd be breathing differently. And then you realize, oh, I feel different. It's that quick. And it's that insanely different just based on what you believe is true about the situation. So the ability to flip that is it's a skill in itself. And that once you realize, and again, go Google the placebo effect. Just go look it up after this for everybody listening. You hear it, and then you'll realize, oh, this is unbelievable that no one's actually talking about this, because the placebo effect exists in almost every single study that they do. They always compare to a placebo. They'll give people a sugar pill, and the sugar pill will give people benefits. they didn't do anything. They just thought they were getting a benefit.
It's so crazy. Us as humans, we're so intricate. Our minds are just there's so much we don't know about ourselves and the history of us. And it's just so interesting to hear that. And I've become it's so cool to talk to you. I've just become such a nerd about just all the things and like outlooks on life. I feel like that's me now. And we're away from the game, and people who are negative or look at something and they're like, oh my God, this is going to be the worst day ever. I have to do this. Or you go and just tackle it head on. You're not even thinking about it, just smiling the whole way. Your day is going to be great. It's really, really nuts to see just the difference in that. And sorry for anyone who's going to jump in there, but it's just, it's so cool.
Yeah. Also, too, if you bring it down to hockey players and how regimented we are in preparation, right? So it's a funny dynamic because our preparation is what dictates what we're talking about is our confidence, right? But that can also be something that's also our detriment. Jay, I know you can attest to this too. It's like you have a bad game, or dude, it was this tape job, or it's because I didn't eat my pasta with my meatballs and then my marinara. I was like neurotic like that because we're built that way. Like to your point, Logan, we're like machines, and we're also creatures of habit. And a lot of that's built into us that kind of spurs off into like our daily lives as well. I'm very regimented in regards to like there's certain things that I'm trying to get better at the fact that like maybe I had a bad day because I didn't eat my cereal at 8:01 a.m. But it's a lie if we say that it's that those things, especially as hockey players, creep into our head. We're like, damn, I had a bad game because I know it. I drank my Powerade too late, or I drank my pre-workout too early. It's such a crazy thing that it's just like a ping pong ball that goes back and forth and back and forth, and you're like trying to figure it all out, you know?
Like later in life, I needed to chill that out because I don't have time anymore to have a 3-hour prep before a fucking beer league game, I'm like barely putting the kid down and being like, gotta go. But yeah, there are those things that still mean, it's new tape every game. It's the way that you get dressed, it's making sure you have all your shit, it's all still very important. But the last meal 3 hours before a game thing is just gone away, Yeah. There's not all of it has gone away because that would be psychotic. But I wanted to ask a question about something that kind of is along the path of what we're talking about here, but also includes how accessible this video footage is and social media is, and the kind of expectation it's setting on players like our guy Connor Bedard. This poor kid is just getting eaten alive by the media. He's still a fantastic hockey player, upper echelon of the hockey world, and the expectation set from him running through the lower leagues and just being like, here he is, he's gonna change the Blackhawks, and we're all gonna sit back and watch him. Now that's tough to put on your shoulders as a kid, and then then the media just to continue to be like, yeah, he's not doing anything. And you're like, do you guys watch this game? Do you guys play hockey? Do you know like what this guy's going through? Where do you even begin in a situation like that?
It's a big conversation that what he's going through is a big picture version of what that every hockey player goes through to some level. He's probably the closest you could get to 100% right now in terms of the magnitude or just how big this is. He's the guy who, he became this star before he even played a game. It was, he's going to be the guy who brings in all the money. I remember watching Bedard and Crosby in that first game and thinking it's just such a big deal to have him. And for him, it's multifaceted because that part of why he feels it and why you see it expressed is because they're losing, and that he cares so much that it's perceived as, oh, it's all this stress he's feeling because of the weight and expectation, but it's because he's very much like a Kobe Bryant type person.
He just wants to win.
Yeah, he just wants to win. And so he, to some extent, you can say, oh, well, it's because he's got all this pressure and everybody wants him to do this and he's supposed to be this guy. But at the end of the day, that what makes him so special is that you saw it in World Juniors and all these different high level opportunities he was in. He's so competitive that when he gets frustrated, it's because he knows he can be better. That what happens for a lot of players is they don't have what he has, and they can even be winning as a team or as a group or doing well, but they just struggle with pressure in general. And so I want to highlight that because that sometimes he gets, ripped on right now and put, not you guys, but people put him in a box of, it's almost as if, oh, he's struggling because he's supposed to be something. He just knows what he's capable of, and that in order to attack it and to help him, I don't think that getting rid of what he's feeling right now is actually going to solve anything, because if he's just going around and they're losing and he's, oh, yay, woo, I feel at peace, I feel great. That's not going to help anybody. And it's this weird balance that you have to walk as a competitive athlete, that at one level, that players understanding that this is just a game. It's just it's all, none of this stuff matters at the end of the day. Like, you're playing a sport. Yes, you get paid. I know it's a career, but worst case, you can go work an office job after. You can go live. It's not the end of the world. And even at a younger and younger age, I'm seeing this kind of issue happen of, it's like the professionalization of young athletes too, where everything is looked at as the end of the world. Every single game, every practice, every training session, it's like, you have to win, you have to be the best, or you're a failure and you should hate yourself. And it's becoming very toxic from what I'm seeing. I'm obviously not the young athlete playing it anymore, but the ability to understand at a base level for Bedard and for any player that, okay, it's not the end of the world. It's okay if you play bad. It's okay if you make a mistake. You're not supposed to feel good when you don't do what you want. So if you go and just have a terrible practice, or you play a terrible game, or your team's not winning, having that emotion is a signal from your brain saying, I want this. This is what we're doing. We want to bring those into alignment. I got a lower expectation, right? So that might be what you got to do. Or you need to increase what you're doing so that the performance increases. But at a fundamental level, that once you loosen up the grip of it's okay, and then you start to actually come at it from okay, what if this was, I don't know, Monopoly, and we're just playing like a fun game? Okay, how would I treat this differently? How would I look at this and be competitive, right? When we play with our parents or siblings, we still want to crush them. I'm assuming everybody's competitive like that, pretty much every hockey player, right? You still want to win, but you realize if I lose, it's not, oh, I should cry and think my life is over. And what I like to use as a really good example of this is, all of us and every player who listens to this, you failed in a time that going into that situation, you said, if I fail, it's the end of the world. And then you lost, and then you played bad, and then you made a mistake or whatever it was, and then you were fine. And so we have all the evidence to show us we can be okay and move through it.
It's also just a crazy, thinking about how fast everything is in the internet, and a good play, a bad play, it happens in a game. You could pretty much get on Instagram and see a clip. Remember waiting a week to see plays of the week? Maybe the goal was good enough to get on ESPN and compete against basketball and football and baseball. It was like, it's just so crazy now that people can, be getting torn apart in a bad way for something maybe so minute, which is unfortunate. But again, to say, like, specifically in a Connor Bedard case, to be like, if I had a tenth of his skill, how happy I would be. And then someone could say, well, you can't justify that because he's in the NHL. And I'd be like, if 50% of the league was as good as he was, it would be a different league. So it's an unfortunate, and I don't want to just get stuck on him because there's especially this video thing can hurt so many younger players too, being on, every kid's highlight reels on YouTube, and every other kid can sit behind a keyboard and, roast them or whatever. And or they can have just a crazy expectation built around them,
Yeah,
just got to be hard to manage.
it's so crazy, man. It really is. And my dad calls me somewhat of a psychopath sometimes because when I played hockey, yeah, fair enough. When I played hockey, it was very weird for me. So you were mentioning, it was just so funny you mentioned it. When I play things against my friends or my family, and it's a board game, or I'm playing basketball, or I'm playing football or something, I'm a psycho. I genuinely don't want to talk to you for 50 minutes after if you beat me. I do not want to talk to you. Just leave me alone. Don't speak to me. I'm fine. I'm the worst. And I've now grown up to notice that. And it's very hard to change, but I'll probably be like that with my kids too. If they beat me and something, I'll be like, get away from me. Don't talk to me. But when I played hockey, what Jay said earlier is everything just went quiet. Everything I could think about, every stress that I had outside of hockey, everything that it just went quiet. It was just this serene, peaceful ocean. And I cared, but it was like, this is the thing that brings me the most joy in my life. And I didn't want to over stress it. And I always wanted to be able to enjoy it. And then when the time came where I didn't enjoy it, it was just like the end of the world. And I woke up the next day and I was fine. But there's so many good things there. And with hockey players and athletes in general and people, how important do you think the mental health aspect of it? I know you said you don't want to just cram down those feelings of sadness and different things like that, but like I said, we're programmed to do those things. So I just love to hear how important you think just the actual mental well-being of people is.
The way we use language when it comes to the mental game is a huge piece to how to actually approach it effectively. And that in a similar way, when we talk about, for example, physical health and physical performance, they're very, very similar because it's very hard to have optimal long-term physical performance if the body is just super unhealthy and you're just diesel sugar and, I don't know, processed food all the time. It catches up to you over time, right? It manifests in an injury, or your energy levels suck, or whatever it is. And when it comes to the idea of mental health, that mental health and mental performance are so tightly bound that the conversation, and I say this to my wife as well, she's about to be a therapist in psychology, and this idea that we treat therapy and mental health as this thing that's, oh, there's something wrong with you, you're broken, and so you got to go to therapy to fix it. And then entrepreneur guys, this is like a big thing that it's like, I got my business coach and he coaches me on marketing or whatever the thing is. But at the end of the day, you'll probably talk about psychology type things, and you'll talk about the same types of things they talk about in therapy. It's understanding how to manage, and you can approach it two different ways. You can go behavioral based. So you can say, how do I change based on doing different behaviors? So this is something we do in our programs is I get guys just changing their whole routine. Lay out who you want to be as a person, what you need to do in order to actually make that happen, and putting an actual action system in place. So you can take that approach. But then there's also the other side of, okay, what about the cognitive side of it, or the thinking side of it? And mental health a lot of times comes from, yes, there's clinical depression and there's some deeper things that, yes, you may need medication for. There are things that you should definitely just talk to a doctor straight up about. There's no argument or like debate about that. But that a lot of the stuff in the middle where you're not really performing well, you're struggling to, show up to the rink happy, you feel down, you're hard on yourself. A lot of those things are a result of kind of just mental health overall. You have super negative self-talk. You don't understand how to actually restructure your thinking to be more positive. And then you hear all these people yell at you, think positive. You just got to be positive, man. See the bright side. And you're like, sick, man. That doesn't actually, it doesn't move the ball forward, right? And I really understood this when I started breaking down different psychological frameworks like DBT, CBT, a whole bunch of different approaches. and realizing that fundamentally, these are all just ways to restructure the way that you think, restructure the way that you approach action, the way that you deal with your emotions. And so those are systems, and they're bigger stacks of actions you can take to work on your mental health and your mental performance. But at a base level, just understanding, okay, how do I restructure my thinking? How can I actually approach being more positive? And again, I can spend 3 hours just taking you through a whole detailed sequence of different ways to do that. There's the emotional side of it. It's understanding, how do you actually be with emotions and actually notice them, as opposed to, like I talked about, like suppressing and avoiding them. It's understanding, how do I actually trust myself and learn to allow my subconscious mind and the deeper part of myself, my instincts, to come out, and building that trust and relationship with fear, with that kind of hesitation. Because at the end of the day, that's where flow state really comes from, is, can you allow your brain to get out of the way? But there's all the work you do mentally to teach yourself how to have the skills and the subconscious software to be able to get into flow when you actually get there. So it's not just something where it's snap your fingers and say this magic word and then now you're in flow state. It's, did you build all the ability? Do you have the right software to get into it? Do you have the mental health? That's the baseline of the way I would describe it for players, is just think of mental health as, is my brain performing optimally? You wouldn't look at your body and say, oh, my ankle's broken, but oh, my physical health is fine. You know that that's not the case, right? So it's so key to be able to take away this kind of stigma from it and be able to just be honest that it's just, is my brain doing what I want it to do? And having a system to actually make that happen, so you can go out and perform and have fun and do it and enjoy the game. It's a long-winded answer to answer that one, but
No, I wish that, I know now mental health, talking about it, and I love it, the fact that it's way more acceptable to talk about, because, I didn't have it. I feel like that was a big part of my game that affected me, that was missing, right? Mentorship and being able to have a lot of great players. And we go back to, again, I'm using Connor Bedard, or you can use Celebrini as an example too. Having mentorship, especially at that young age, coming into the league, I can only imagine how that's such a huge part. That's why you hear about these players are living with veterans, because it really helps them get used to life on that level as well. Because there's enough pressure on their shoulders to be the best that they can on the ice. There's these expectations they need to meet, but there's also just, it's like an 18-year-old kid, And I had, yesterday, we had one of my ex teammates on, and it's like a mirror, right? You're reflecting into who you were at 17, and I just wasn't the person I am today at 17. And we're hard on ourselves about that. And I was hard on myself a long time for that, but then you look at, what could we have done differently? And it's the way that the game is flowing now, to have mental health, really great mentors on teams, being able to talk about, look, I'm struggling here. This sucks. Especially these young kids, they're leaving home at 17. I did it at 14. I didn't know anything about anything, and having somebody to just say, hey, you know what? This is how you do these things. Here's a routine. Here's different things that you can do to manage these feelings, the expectations of everything. And it's a great thing that you're doing, just to help the next generation of players. And we talk about social media, and we've talked about the good and the bad of it on this show, but I feel like this is a huge positive in changing that stigma that mental health is not a weakness. I feel like I applaud a lot more people for really diving a little bit deeper into it, because what molds and shapes us every day. I still, to this day, we're always going through it, right? Like boys, we're always just trying to be better people, be better parents, be better for ourselves, be better for our significant others, our wives. So yeah, I just appreciate everything that you're doing. I know we could go on and talk for hours on this, but winning mindset, like if you could say something to part with for these guys on how to create a winning mindset for who you are right now as a player, what would you say?
Understanding at a baseline or a base level that a winning mindset is not some exact science where I can tell you, you should think exactly this way and exactly that way, because you can see evidence of different amazing champions in all different sports who had different ways of approaching the game. One of the best examples I like to use is, most people like to use Michael Jordan as maybe the ultimate kind of like athlete competitor type person. Yes, exactly. Right. And the truth is, and I'll say this, and maybe this is controversial, but he was an asshole. If you really look at the way he treated people, the way he treated himself at times, he was very, very, I don't really care about anything. I want to crush everyone all the time. He would play these, if you guys watched The Last Dance, I'm sure you guys did. You played that little like a nickel game where they throw it against the wall, and he would take money from people. Like, it was beat everybody, and it still beat everybody all the time. And so this idea that then I'm going to come in as a mental coach and tell you, oh yeah, but you should focus on not taking it as seriously and relax and just enjoy it. Yeah, that's the formula for some guys. The truth for some players is that most of the guys I work with, to be honest, are guys who are over analytical. They're players who are super in their head. They care so much about, I want to be the best. I want to dominate everything. And it actually stops them a lot of times because they don't necessarily have the athletic talent of a Michael Jordan, who we can all talk about him getting cut from basketball team, but he was a freak genetic athlete, right? And so sometimes we have to remind ourselves, like, you can look at how Crosby treated the game. You can look at how Bedard treated it mentally. But to some extent, you're talking about guys who have better athletic ability than you do right now. And so the point is not that, oh, you should just ignore everything they do, but you have to be conscious that it's deeper than just saying think this step one, think this step two. It's more about being conscious of, what do you need to figure out for your game right now? What do you need to find in terms of, do you have enough competitiveness? Are you actually somebody who wants to win and succeed? Do you have desire? Okay, cool. Now you have the desire. Do you understand how the world actually works? Do you understand what you need to do to make that desire happen? Do you prepare the right way? Do you have the right resources? Do you hire the right mental coaches, physical coaches, skills coaches? Do you have all those tools? Then are you able to reflect and be honest that, hey, maybe I'm neglecting something. Maybe something about my system is missing. Do I have the obsession that I want to figure it out? Do I want to improve? And if you think about overall, like, competitor or winning mindset, yes, it's something you can teach. Yes, it's a way of looking at the world, but you have to find that within you to want to win and be competitive in the first place. And then you have to install the right software that's going to help you carry that out. And that's going to be unique for every player. And it's really important to realize that that's why you should work with somebody, even if it's for a month. You work with a mental coach and they can just sit with you and help you figure it out. It's not because I'm just trying to get a million people to work with me. It's because whoever it is, it's about working with somebody who can help you figure out what you need and walk you through that process and help you reflect, keep you accountable to that. Because athletes have, especially when you think about the context of young athletes, you have such a small window to separate yourself and to figure out how good you can be. I know that for me, I was D1 bound up until about 17. I screwed up a little bit of my development. I had a bit of a off mentality in terms of trying to be a superstar and not playing the game I needed to play. And that mentality, even though it seemed right to me at the time, was a blind spot that really hurt me and probably cost me getting a scholarship. And so that's why it's so important to pay attention to that and find your mentality that allows you to win. And once you find that, then it's about saying, look, I'm not just going to figure it out and then I'm good to go. It's piece that system together, keep improving, keep facing challenges. And honestly, if I could leave somebody with anything with a winning mentality, it's do you look at every opportunity or every situation as a chance to challenge yourself? Are you actually leaning into things that are hard that you're not sure if you're going to win at? Or are you avoiding those things? Because tying it all back to the idea of like confidence, think about what we talked about when you say confidence. It's not that you believe you're going to win every single scenario, because if you're 100% confident and you're picking things, you pick things in the off season where you're 100% confident you're going to win. You lift weights, you're 100% confident you're going to lift. If you challenge against teammates who you know you're going to beat, you will not get better. And that's why losing and doing hard things is actually the process of winning. Even though in the micro it feels like losing, sometimes you have to go up and play against better players and get crushed. Sometimes you have to go and do a workout where you throw up, and that feels like a loss. Everything about your body and your mind is going to tell you I'm losing. But the winning mentality is knowing that it's a big picture thing and it's a big process that you're working on, and it's going to feel like waves, but it's where is the direction of the overall wave go?
I love it. Makes a lot of sense to me. Just being like Mike doesn't make you Mike either, you know? And not just him, but you got to have the tools as well.
Jay, you're 100% right. And like Corson said, the tools, like you have to make sure you have those skills before you can apply that level of confidence to your game. And Corson, I can't say thank you enough for coming on. This was unbelievable, dude. Any young kid out there, man, you definitely need to hook up with Corson here. He's provided so much good insight. Like I said, I wish I would have had it just 2 years ago or 3 years ago when I was still playing. It really would have changed a lot of outcomes for me and the whole situation. So again, thank you so much, dude. This is such a pleasure.
And not just specifically about hockey too, you know, there's a lot of life lessons here and things you can apply every day. So I don't make a lot of the interviews here, and I'm very happy I made this one. You're super awesome to talk to, and you have such a good message and some very good tools for some people out there.
Yeah, like I said, Corson, and we say it all the time. The whole point of why we're doing this is so that we can grow the community together on all realms. It isn't one specific thing. And as hockey players, the game has changed so much on all levels. And that's the beauty of it also, but it can be a detriment. But this is one of those things where we're bringing that information to the next generation of players. I always think about it, and I always try to put myself in the position of, and we all do, if we were talking to ourselves during that time, making those hard decisions, just trying to figure it all out. And way easier said than done, but to have resources like this, and if we can provide and partner with great people that are helping build those resources, that's a main initiative for us in Focus. And I can't thank you enough for coming on. We are going to want to bring you on at some point again, just to pick your brain on little cool segments that we can, because you have so much to offer. We can't cover in an hour, but this was a great overview conversation. And before we get off, how can everybody find you? Because we'd love for anybody that's listening to get in touch with you so that you can share the knowledge and they could work with you, because this is awesome.
Biggest thing is you can basically find me Instagram. You can find me at identity shift underscore hockey, just to make it super confusing. You can also just search my name too, and you'll find me. You can find me on YouTube at Identity Shift Hockey. But really, I focus on putting this stuff out for free because I want this stuff to be available. And a lot of people ask me, hey, you got paid stuff, and you know, what's the point of doing the paid stuff? The difference between the stuff I put out for free and the stuff I do for paid is the free stuff, whenever I learn something, I just try to put it out as fast as I can and just get it out there. And the other stuff is about helping you be accountable. Like I said, having a custom system. And so if somebody's interested and they want to actually have someone help them develop it and, you know, approach it, whether it's, you know, one-on-one or group or whatever we decide to do, that's the goal, is just to make this stuff available, because I agree with your guys' mission. I just want this stuff to be available because I know what it's like when you're not quite getting the right tools. And once you have the right tools, it doesn't mean you're going to make the NHL. It doesn't mean you're going to be Crosby, but it does mean that you're going to have a great chance of reaching your potential. And that's what I care about, is how good can you be? How much fun can you have? And how much, adversity can you face and overcome through your career? I want guys to have the tools to be able to do that and just have the best career they can, maximize themselves, really.
Thanks a lot, Corson. Again, thank you so much. Thank you so much for Corson Searles for joining the podcast. Just being able to, like we said in the pre-interview, just being able to dive a little bit deeper into the mental approach as a player. I learned so much, and we said it and we keep saying it. We could talk to this guy for hours. We're going to have him on a side segment where we can just break down just the mental makeup of players, right? How we can implement a lot of his strategies into some players that are looking for that knowledge as well. What do you think, Logan?
Awesome stuff. I think even past being a player, there's a lot of beneficial things that he brought to the table. And myself, Frank, as business owners, you're stressed out, man. There's high pressure situations when you're going up the talk in front of a crowd. It's the same thing. I'm a nutcase. I look at it the same way as I looked at it as a hockey game. You're going out to play in front of a bunch of high end scouts. It's the same thing. So he really said a lot of things that resonated with me, and I hope it resonated with you guys as well. And I know Frank touched on it earlier, but I just realized so much stuff about myself as when I was a player that I did, and I would try to hide or whatever. But it's a very, very eye-opening episode, a very informative episode, and we're really, really pumped to bring this out, episode 10.
Well, Logan, what a episode. Episode 10 couldn't be possible without our wonderful sponsors, Buddy Hockey Club, Best Damn Tape, Cut Shield Hockey, Bambino Shave Cream. We love you guys so much. Like we said right out the gate, we can't wait to see you on the next one. Later.